everyone, Jay here from Review All the Things, heading out to the garage on a bit of a rainy day. Today we're going to wire up the rear LED light that's in the BrushGuard slash rear bumper that I put on the other day. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link to it up here somewhere and in the description. I'll give you a look at what we did. So this is the ANU TV Pro BrushGuard that we installed. Comes with the rear LED light. We got a simple 2-wire hookup, and we're going to run this feed into the cab to a switch. I want to have it on a switch. I don't want it to come on automatically. I want it to come on when I want it to come on. So I went ahead and put some stuff together to accomplish that task. So I went ahead and made up a harness. I had some wire, used some 18 gauge wire, corrugated sleeve. I measured and I made about 18 feet of wire. I don't know that I'm going to need that much. Hopefully I don't. That's a lot. And I got my waterproof butt connectors, wire crimpers, my heat gun. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this up along the frame rail into the cab and then up to the roof mounted power pulse bar. And then we're going to sever the connection and run the rest straight to the overhead switch light. And then once I get the switch in, I will install that and I'll do a quick video on it. Unfortunately, it's not in stock right now, so I'll have to wait. So let's get started. Alright everyone, so we're set up here under the bed, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to run my wire alongside probably the rear backup camera wire and bring it up through the underside of the frame of the bed, and then just follow the wire going all the way back into the cab. And this is pretty similar to how I did the harness, which you can see here, that taps into these rear connectors for the WD Electronics Street Legal turn signal kit. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll put it up here somewhere or in the description. You can check out how I did that install. I'm pretty much going to run it the same way, and then once I know my length to where I need to run it, I'll cut it and then run the other length to the upper switch panel. So taking you in a little closer, so this is the harness that I'm probably going to follow to get to the light, which is down the bottom, obviously in the middle. And then this is what I'm gonna follow the main harness, and you can see these are the taps for the WD Electronics kit. And that wire I have run all along the, see if you can see it here, all along the main harness, down through the tunnel, which is really probably hard to see, and into the cab. So I'm gonna do the same thing with my harness. I'm not gonna connect anything right now. I'm gonna leave everything loose, and we'll connect everything once we know we have the lengths right. So I'll take you along with me. Alright, so we got our harness. We're going to get to work. So you can see me there. So right now, we're just going to follow along that harness, run it in through the cab. So here's a little review of all the things tip. When I'm running multiple wires and I need to get them through, I just put a wire nut on the end of them. It keeps them from splitting off and fraying, and we're eventually just going to cut that short anyway, so it doesn't matter, but it makes it easier to push it through because it has some weight to it. And right now I'm not going to zip tie anything just yet. I'm just going to try and get the basic rundown, because if you've done this before, you know that you're always going to run into having to reposition the harness. No, I'll use like some of the factory hold downs. There's one right here. So I'll make use of those as I go through. So before I show you the inside of the cab, I wanted to just make a note that running harnesses and how you run them is pretty much personal preference depending on how you use your machine. I mostly plow snow, haul junk around the yard, things like that. It hasn't seen any extreme off-road use yet. It might in the future, but not so much right now. So, you know, how you run your harness is going to be dependent on your application. I treat this pretty much like how I would treat an installation on a car. I try to hide everything, make everything look clean. So that's what I opted for in this situation. So I'll take you through that. You know, you may have a different way or different opinion. That's perfectly fine. Just showing you the way that I did it. So here we go. So starting here in the back, you can see I've come through and followed the rear harness through the rear camera bracket, and I've temporarily wired this. I'm going to put full waterproof connections back here, but I just wanted to get it out of the way for now. And I don't know, I think it was pretty ingenious. In order to run this harness and keep it tucked up out of the way, I was going to use some double-sided tape, but then I found I had some really heavy-duty Velcro. So we're going to try that out. And if it works, it's not dumb, right? So I've got that securing the harness there, and then same thing, securing the harness and wires up here. You know, if it holds up to the weather, we don't know, but I'm willing to try anything once. And so that's what it looks like underneath, and I'll take you through around the top. So here we are under the bed. We're coming out, following the harness. Make sure to leave a little slack for when the bed goes up and down, and then tidy it up around the main harness. All zip tied nice, going down, underneath, and ultimately through to the cab. So I'll take you on the inside and show you what that looks like. So under the battery tray is where I'm coming in. Take this out. You can see the wire right here. I have to clean up the positioning, but it's going to follow along this harness past the battery, and there's a pass-through on this side. I really wish there was one on the driver's side too, but there's a pass-through for what I can only assume is wiring. You could come out of here and go straight this way and up the B-pillar on the passenger side, but there's no way to tuck the wire behind anything to keep it out of sight. So I'm making a right turn going behind the seats, and I'll show you where it comes out. All right, so there you can see the harness making the right turn, coming behind the seat. I'll tuck that up under the trim panel there, but it doesn't really matter because when the seat's down, there's no pinch points. You can't see it. You can see it a little bit there, running behind the driver's seat. All right, so we're over on the driver's side. You can see the wire here. It's coming, peeking through behind the trim panel, and it's going to run right up this harness, right through this pass-through up into the roof. So there'll be a little bit of it exposed. Maybe I shouldn't use red and black, but whatever, that's okay. And then it's going to come nicely right over to, it's going to follow the harnesses along here, right over to my pulse bar. I have a pigtail in there already, and then I'll offshoot from there. It'll come across the headliner down into the switch panel. All right, everyone, so I finished up making all my connections so that I could switch the rear light on and off using a switch in my upper switch panel. So I made up a 3-wire harness, put it in a black sheath, ran it along the roof, secured it out of the way, over this roof beam, down, and it'll go into the upper switch panel. So again, three-wire harness on, and I'll tell you why I did that in a second. One thing I want to point out is, unfortunately, I made an assumption, and you know what happens when you assume, but I assumed the rear pulse bar had the same options as the front pulse bar, over there, where you could have a battery all the time on one pin, accessory power on the middle pin, meaning when the key is on or the engine's running, that's the only time it would have power, and then you have a ground. So I was trying to wire this so that I could use the light when the key was off. And there's plenty of ways I could do that, but I was trying to do it with the pulse bar. Come to find out, that the rear pulse bar, and maybe you guys already know this, but learn something new every day, only receives power when the key is on. So what you end up with is 2 accessory powers and 1 ground. So we're going to roll with that for now. And I used one of my pigtails that you can buy on Amazon. So essentially you have your blue wire in the middle as an accessory power, your red wire as an accessory power, and then you have your ground. So what I did is I came off the power, I fused it, got 18 feet of harness, so smart to fuse it. Don't need a relay because this is not a very high powered light. There's a relay here that is for my rough country lights because those are pretty high powered. But fuse is enough. So the power is coming out, going through my harness that I showed you all the way out to the rear light, and then the ground is coming back through the same harness. I could have grounded the light in the back and just interrupted the power with a switch, but this is the way I decided to do it. You can do it any way you want. There's a couple different ways to skin this cat. So I have the ground here, which is coming from the rear light. That is coming into my harness that I made, going up, over, and ends here at where my switch will be. That'll connect to the switch. And then on the other side, I have another wire that is obviously going back through the harness, which comes out right here. Don't mind that it's red. It's I only had 2 colors of wire. So that goes up and grabs the ground off of the pulse bar. So when we operate our switch, we are interrupting the ground. The 3rd wire, I did connect just so that I don't have to take all of this back down. If I want to use that accessory power, which I have right here, which I will eventually use when I get a lighted switch to make all of that work. So for now, we have all of our wiring set up. I've tested it. One other thing that I did, if you do have a headliner, it's going to make it a lot easier if you trim the notch out. There's already a small notch there for the wire if you have a wiper, but to make everything line up and fit properly, you're going to want to open that up a little bit, and I'll show you what that looks like when I'm all done. So I'm going to put the headliner back up, the switch panel back up, just test everything one more time, and then I'm going to heat shrink all my connectors, and we will be done with this one for now until I can get the switch that I really want. So I'll show you what it looks like when we're all done. So for right now, I'm using a basic Carling Technologies 2-pin switch. This is the L series switch, which matches the Polaris factory switches. And once OTR Switch Guys has the switch I want back in stock, a lighted switch, we'll go ahead and put that in. But I'm just going to put this one in for right now, which you can get off of Amazon. So we have the final product. Everything is complete. All my butt connectors are heat shrinked. I wrapped up the harnesses. I routed them. And I have them following along right down into the switch panel. And I left these 2 blanks out so you can kind of see if it focuses. Coming down and connecting to my switches. And I added a second switch for my rough country lights, which had a switch in the headliner. So for right now, I've set them both up. So here is a look at the lights in action. So this is the BrushGuard. This is the rough country. You can see the BrushGuard fills in some of the gap at the bottom, which is nice. So we're pretty much wrapped up here. Just got to put the other piece of the headliner up and we'll be done. So like and subscribe. Appreciate the support, and don't be afraid to work on your own stuff. We'll see you on the next one.